will have something to say about who is the best general manager in the history of the franchise. Now, again, Chris Young was the GM that led them to the promised land, but it was with a lot of the players that John Daniels acquired. So we're wondering what you think about that. And he now is, Jeff, the president of baseball operations. Is that distinction such that, when JD was president of baseball operations, he brought in a GM named Chris
Right.
Young.
Yeah.
Does that allow for this possibility, or have you had a chance to talk to Chris about anything like that?
No, he's in town, so hopefully that's definitely a question that needs to be asked. Could somebody, Ross Fenstermaker, get promoted to general manager? I know that he's been a candidate. His name's been floated around a little bit the last couple off seasons about becoming a potential general manager. I don't know if there'll be any openings this year, but if giving Ross the GM title keeps him from heading elsewhere, then you might see that. But yeah, there are opportunities. I know that Chris is Dayton Moore, who was Chris's GM as a player in Kansas City. Dayton's a guy who likely could land another job, and maybe he wants another GM job. But right now he's a free agent. I mean, he's a kind of a special assistant to the Rangers. But yeah, he could be a candidate for a post like that if that's what the Rangers wanted to do, have an official general manager. So it definitely on the table, I would think. But to your point, best GMs in franchise history, I think that a general manager's success is largely based on his farm system and his manager. And so, Tom Grief hired Bobby Valentine, produced a farm system that produced Juan Gonzalez, Ivan Rodriguez, Ruben Sierra. I'm probably leaving out a bunch of guys, but
Kenny Rogers, Kevin Brown, yeah,
a really good farm system. Bobby Witt, all right, and then Doug Melvin. He accepted, took over for Doug. Who did he hire? Johnny Oates. Johnny Oates was one of the could be the best manager in Rangers history. If you want to have a debate, he led them to the playoffs for the first 3 times in franchise history. John Daniels, who does he hire? Ron Washington, his first managerial hire, and that worked out pretty well. The farm system, produced guys like Neftali Feliz, Derek Holland, Matt Harrison. I could keep going. Elvis Andrus, what a trade that was. I know all GMs have bad trades. So don't hold the Adrian Gonzalez trade over John Daniels. John Daniels acquired Nelson Cruz. So there are ways you can do it. And you're right. And Chris Young has acknowledged that the 2023 Rangers, John Daniels had a huge hand in them. Look, Josh Young was a part of the 2019 draft choice. Chris Young was working for MLB at the time. The Simeon and Seager signings. Yes, Chris Young was there and partook in those, but John Daniels was the general manager. The trade that Nathaniel Lowe, who was a huge part last year, Jonah Heim, huge part last year. Those are John Daniels trades. Dolis Garcia, that was a John Daniels thing. So John Daniels' fingerprints are on last year's team. Chris Young got him over the finish line, but now I think it's kind of like a football coach, or you take over a team. Let's say Sonny Dykes at TCU, and he had Gary Patterson's players and had a great season.
Yep.
He brought in his own guys, sure, but a lot of those guys that went to the NFL were Gary Patterson players. And then last year, not so good. This year, they're good, and I think Sonny Dykes is starting to see the fruits of his recruiting the past couple of years. So, is Chris Young? Are the Rangers going to see the fruits of his free agency signings this offseason? It's kind of like that. It's eventually going to be his team, and so I just think that's ahead. So I think it's too early to answer the question. Is he the best GM?
Yeah, I agree with that, and I want your thoughts on this. And I knew you were a big Dave Dombrowski fan, and I don't blame you. But I am really glad you brought up Tom Grieve, because, I'm not going to argue that he was the best in franchise history, but he's my favorite. Tom Grieve, such a great guy. I'll never
He's your
forget.
goat?
Oh, he's my guy. I never forget. Even, when Tom was GM, I was a new reporter at Channel 5, young reporter, and I heard from somebody and then went and did a story. Tom Grieve was coaching Ben Grieve, his then 12-year-old son, in Little League on some random field in central Arlington. And we went and did a story on it. He was the head coach of Ben's team as the general manager of the Texas Rangers. And that is how down to earth Tom Grieve is. And he's my favorite GM in the history of the Rangers. But there's been some great ones. Dennis Loki weighed in with Doug Melvin. You mentioned him too, Jeff. He's a great one. There have been plenty. They've had some really good GMs. Yeah. Now, I'm sorry about the distraction, but go.
You're passionate. I love it.
I love Tom.
Well, I'm passionate about Chris Young's character that I want to talk about first, because we did mention, how he thought of a very unique process with the World Series ring to allow players to have that ceremony, because he was pitching the day that he won, couldn't be a part of the ring ceremony, but also, what you were saying about JD, didn't he let him ride in the float for the World Series?
His kids.
His kids, yeah. So
CY brought his kids.
So he's that guy. Like, he's not going to, take all the credit. He's going to give flowers where they're deserved, and you appreciate that about Chris Young, because in this day and age, that is always left off the table, but never with Chris Young. Second point is his last game was June 17th, 2017. That's not that long ago. My dad just talks all the time about how important it is. The further that you get removed away from the game, the less you know, the less you're up to date with things. So, it's not like he's coming in 30 years later and, let me tell you about what I did back in my day. He's very, aware of the way that things work. And so that's important too. But Dave Dombrowski, I just have my own personal experience with Dombrowski. I think he's one of the best ever. And I've actually talked to CY about, just Dave Dombrowski. And, I compared him to Dave, and he was honored with that. But I'm like, I genuinely think that you're the best at kind of creating the perfect storm and getting the best out of your players, because they respect you, because you were a teammate, things like that nature. So, yeah, Chris Young deserves it. No doubt about that. And happy to see the Rangers take care of him. Yeah,
and you mentioned, Jeff, that he's there in Seattle. You'll probably have another chance to talk to him. But word is out on the street, he's headed to Japan, perhaps as soon as this weekend, to go do a little scouting now and recruiting of one Roki Sasaki, which, of course, we've talked about already. But that we'd love it if he was the Rangers' biggest target of this offseason.
Yeah, it's I don't know how that would take place. I understand how Chris going, and the Rangers could be a contender. All 30 teams could be a contender for him theoretically, because he's still young enough that he would come from the international budget and the international bonus pool, and so a team could commit their entire bonus pool to one player. It's however you want to spend it. It screws over a lot of kids in the Dominican and Latin America from getting an opportunity, but theoretically you can. And the Rangers, when they pursued Shohei Ohtani and thought they were going to get him, they had the most money available of any of the, I can't remember if it was 6 or 8 finalists. The Rangers had the most money, but Ohtani didn't want the most money. It's, the biggest bonus, as it turns out. I guess he wanted to be in LA, and it's kind of worked out for him with the marketing opportunities and everything. So the Rangers are aware of the possibility that Sasaki gets posted. They would have no problem ponying up the posting fee. They want a spot at the table, and I think that would be an advantage with Chris Young there. Chris Young, who would be able to say, "I've been a major league player. I understand it. I know what you're going to go through. Come with us. We'll take care of you. We've got Jacob deGrom. You have the opportunity to maybe pitch with Kumar Rocker.